right, good. I'm excited here to talk to you today about brands and the curse of our disposable culture. How do brands provide lasting significance when culture's collective interest is fleeting? As was mentioned, I'm the CEO of this company, SYLVAIN. You can check us out at sylvain.co. We help companies think about the future of their products and brands. You'll learn more there. Projects that we worked on recently with some of these brands, we're thinking about issues like direct-to-consumer, COVID, social justice. So check us out if you are curious and you want to learn more. So I want to start with a story, and I want to talk about bread. Bread is what unifies all human beings. For 14,000 years, human beings have been eating bread, largely due to the agricultural revolution. It's the thing that unites us. So wherever you go around the world, people are eating bread, from naan or brioche or challah. No matter where you are, bread is a fundamental part of the human diet. And actually, we use bread to celebrate. All around the world, bread is like a fundamental part of celebration. In Eastern Europe, they use bread to celebrate New Year's, challah and New Year's. In Mexico, they use it to celebrate All Souls Day. And of course, in the Caribbean, where my family's from, bread is actually very fundamental in celebrating Carnival. I don't know if you've been to Carnival, but bread is a key part of that incredibly powerful event. It wasn't until the 20th century that bread sort of became a tool for the world of brands. And really, Wonder Bread, if you know Wonder Bread, which was launched in the 20th century, is a great example of a brand that seized upon this universal human phenomenon about bread. And they named it Wonder because it had all the vitamins you need to survive, and it was a great example of brands standing up for something that was so obvious and needed. And they said that this bread was magical, this bread that was made from processed wheat, it had all the vitamins you needed, and it was a huge, huge phenomenon, particularly in the United States. Wonder Bread symbolized health, believe it or not, and it united Americans in a way. It was a standing value, actually, in American identity, which really speaks to the power of brands. And I'm going to talk to you today about brands and the responsibility brands have to engage people. And I'm assuming you all work for a brand in one way or another and understand the power of brands. Over the 20th century, you've seen brands actually dictating our rituals and our culture. Santa Claus is largely an invention of brands. Coca-Cola puts Santa Claus front and center, and now we celebrate this bizarre ritual where a fat white man shows up in your house and gives you gifts. Or Mother's Day. Hallmark invented Mother's Day. One day they were like, yo, we need to sell some cards. Let's create Mother's Day. And Mother's Day became a phenomenon. That's something that we celebrate all over the world, actually. It was created by a brand. Or how about this idea that in order to really trigger nuptials, you have to provide an engagement ring, which in itself is kind of a bizarre, if you think about it. That was created by the diamond industry. All to say, brands have occupied our social and cultural values and interests from wall to wall for really the past 100 years. But something has happened, and I don't need to tell you what's happened. You know what's happened, that brands are losing relevance. 96% of people don't trust advertising. 67% of adults globally agree that once a brand loses my trust, there's no getting it back. So what does that mean? So brands now are on the defensive. Brands, I don't care where you come from or what you do, you have to recognize the fact that the power of the brand has diminished significantly. You used to think differently or just do it really were aspirational ideas. But now, people are not emotionally attached to brands like they used to, and as a result, brands are sort of trying to adopt the coolest, fleeting trend of the day. And you could really see this through design. So brands are sort of adopting very generic, lowest common denominator approaches to really make themselves feel more of the day. And you see that here with Burger King. But across the world of design, you can see it. I don't know if you know this typeface called circular. It's super popular among all brands. Airbnb uses it, Spotify uses it. Everyone's using the same typeface? Like, where's the identity? Where's the ingenuity? Where's the individuality of brands? They're using the same colors. Have you heard of this? Millennial pink is what they call it. You see it, and this is actually all created by the same design studio, I think. This color is what we're seeing more and more in new brands, and that's because brands are just sort of adopting to what's cool and what's hot, and they're trying to be relevant. What about the legacy and the heritage and the power of a brand, the uniqueness of the brand? That's being lost. A lot of heritage brands are now sort of redesigning themselves to become very, very basic, very, very flat, very, very sort of millennial bland, let's call it. Some people call it blending. It's like losing all of the nuance of a brand. These are old heritage legacy brands. And brands are trying to stand up for more. You know, it took Victoria's Secret a very long time to realize that they were perpetuating unhealthy images of women. And they're shifting the company now from thinking about what men want to thinking about what women want. Too late? Probably. And then, you know, you have these bizarre companies that are trying to say, you know, that they're tech companies. Everybody's trying to say they're tech companies. WeWork was like, we're a tech company. You know, Impossible Foods is like, we're a tech company. Really? A tech company? And that's because it's cool. But the truth is, our culture is just so disposable. And that's the reason all these brands are looking for relevance. Things come and go with a quickness. Things come and go through culture really fast. And I'm going to give you an example, okay? About 15 years ago, if you were a fan of Beyoncé, you might write a blog post about Beyoncé. You know, maybe 200 words about Beyoncé. And then that took too much time to read, really. So people went from a blog post to 140 characters to express their love for Beyoncé. And then that wasn't enough, and then we went to the hashtag. And the hashtag somehow captured everything you could possibly want through a few cute words that were put together. And then when people got too bored and impatient with the hashtag, that's when emojis sort of popped up and ended up, you know, symbolizing the same idea. So we went from blog posts to emojis. And then this idea of too long didn't read. You might know this idea that people don't have patience to read a whole piece, so you give them a one-sentence summary, too long didn't read. And it's actually funny, because too long didn't read also has been abbreviated. So it's TL, semicolon DR, and now TLDR. You know why this has happened. We live in a culture that moves hyper fast. You know, Amazon, super fast delivery, 2-day shipping. You know, you blink an eye and it shows up. You know, there are more shows that are launched on Netflix every day than there's actually time. It's insane how much content is being produced. And people are losing their sleep over this stuff. They're binging, watching this stuff. 50% of adults aged under 45 binge watch all the episodes of a TV season or on a streaming service at once. It's crazy. You might even call it, there's like this obsessive reaction disorder. You know, this is a good example. There's this dude who watched Trisha Paytas's, who's I guess a content creator, thing online. He posted about it. She posted a reaction to his reaction of her, and then he posted a reaction of her reacting to him. There's just this like weird need to react and consume information. There's more information than we can actually tolerate. Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Google, said, "I worry about the level of interrupt. The sort of overwhelming rapidity of information is in fact affecting cognition. It is affecting deeper thinking. We can barely keep up with 2 conversations at once. Imagine all this content, this flood of content." So what's happening? So what does that mean for brands? Brands are flailing. They're flailing. They don't know what to do. They're trying to be relevant. And it's a little bit like Tinder if you're a consumer, where you have tons of options. It's like being Tinder. There are thousands of objects you can connect with. There are thousands of choices as consumers. If you're looking for a headphone, there's like 300 really, really good options right now. So as a result, 78% of people feel brands never emotionally connect with them. There's an emotional void in the world of marketing, where, you know, Wonder Bread, Coca-Cola, Hallmark, all those brands had such amazing emotional resonance, aspirational resonance. Now there's an emotional void. So brands are looking to emotionally connect with people, and you're seeing a cacophony of emotional messaging on the part of brands to be relevant. And the biggest one you see these days, I argue, is nostalgia. Brands are trying to use nostalgia to win the hearts of people, to make them feel more relevant, to remind them of a time where things were really great and felt cozy and comfortable. And you see this in advertising. You know, this is a Pepsi commercial where there was a combination of the movie Grease and put in this context to really make you feel warm about the past. Or this Google ad where it was this really bizarre thing where, show me photos of my long-lost wife, and it really tugs at the heartstrings. It's because our memory is so powerful that brands are sort of exploiting it and echoing things that we might remember about them in the past to make us fall in love. Nostalgia is a powerful, powerful drug. There's this amazing word in Portuguese. It's actually hard to translate. It's called saudade, I guess is how you pronounce it. And it's really about a deep, emotional, profound longing for someone or the past. And that's what brands are really tapping into, which is ironic because, in the 17th century or 19th century, nostalgia was a disease. And actually, it was diagnosable. We saw that through letters from soldiers. Nostalgia was actually a disease. And in Greek, nostalgia literally means the pain from an old wound. It's a twinge in your heart, far more powerful than memory alone. This is why brands are using nostalgia to really trigger some things in your brain. There's like science that shows that in the frontal and limbic parts of your brain, it's almost like remembering an old song or remembering some food or something you ate at one time. That brands are sort of exploiting that moment. Nostalgia triggers things like euphoria, where it rewards certain parts of our brain. It provides a sense of optimism and gives us a confidence and self-esteem to seize the day. So indulgence is, relishing in the past is in a way an indulgent exercise. And that's the reason. If you go to Instagram right now, or if you go to TikTok, so many filters now are actually just about providing a layer that makes things look old. Like, think about that for a second. Like, you're in the moment, you're in 2021, but you're going to add like a 90s filter to make something feel old. Why do we do that? We do that because it provides an emotional relevance. Somehow it feels more important or meaningful if you put it in the context of an old video camera or an old camera. There are tons of different versions of this. And pop culture is living this out too. The amount of shows over the years that really just play back things that we saw 20 or 30 years ago is really interesting. And that's a constant trend, whether you're talking about Happy Days or you're talking about Stranger Things. The power of nostalgia is kind of scary. And you think about Donald Trump and his promise of make America great again. It was a sort of code for people that remembered an era where things may have been, good for certain people. And certainly Reagan used that line, make America great again. There's a certain code in using nostalgia and triggering parts of the brain. Pop culture is all about this. I don't know if you know this video by Olivia Rodrigo, where the whole thing is like celebrating the 90s through fashion and through the music, of course, and through the style. Young people, Gen Z today, is obsessed with the 90s, is obsessed with 20 years ago. We see that in fashion choices, hairstyles, throwback sneakers. There's this thing, people are craving meaning in their life and they're looking to nostalgia. And I know there's a lot of Amsterdammers in the room. Do you all know who this is? I don't know who, I learned about this. Andre Hazes, is that how you say it? You play his song in a bar in Amsterdam and people sing and they stand up and it means something, and it's because there's a nostalgia about old Amsterdam. Nostalgia is a drug, and we're drunk on this idea. We're drunk on the idea of nostalgia. But when it comes to brands, people are starting to question this. People are really, here's a quote on Twitter. You can tell how a company you can tell how evil a company is by how touching their Super Bowl ad attempts to be. People are really starting to see through this. Wait, you're using some of that old stuff to try to, you're manipulating me. This is a manipulation. And entertainment is really falling into that trope, bringing back old shows. And a lot of people are bored with it. Yeah, it's cool to check out Friends maybe again, but it's not the same, and maybe people are a little reluctant to dig into it. And what does nostalgia even mean in a society that is so diverse? I can't identify with Friends, for example. Nostalgia is really about playing back the memories of the dominant culture and not the diverse culture in which we all live in today. Nostalgia with its wistful memories is essentially history without the guilt. So I argue that nostalgia has been rendered impotent as an emotional strategy for brands. That you can't really get that emotional trigger that you might want through brands. And so the way to do that, the way to overcome that, is to create new loves for the person suffering from love sickness, find new joys to erase the domination of the old. New things, New emotional strategies. So how will your brand, how will a brand dare to thrive within a disposable culture, beyond nostalgia? And I'm going to give you 4 ways, okay? 4 emotional ways for a brand to be more relevant today. And some of them are obvious. So the first one is virtue. You know, really exuding a sense of purpose that seems great. That's something that we're seeing a lot these days. You know, Airbnb famously is all over this. They provide a lot of emotional value to people by saying that they stand for something, whether it's Afghani refugees or anything, they really have a point of view. And that's because 94% of consumers believe the companies they engage with should have a strong purpose. So that's the first one. Virtue is an emotional strategy. Intrigue is an emotional strategy, so making things feel special and hard to find. You know, this is the Lil Nas X sneaker, the Satan shoes that allegedly had blood in the inside. It was available at a very, very limited time, and we certainly see this with fashion drops. It creates this intrigue. Oh, I gotta be there. That creates an emotional rush. 60% of people make purchases because of fear of missing out, often within 24 hours. So that's the second one, intrigue. The third is a sense of awe and amazement. You know, I don't know if you remember when Felix jumped out of a spaceship. It was crazy. He jumped out of a spaceship. 10 million people watched it live on YouTube, and it was awe-inspiring. It blew you away. And the fourth one is really about the power of surprise. You know, we as brands and as marketers, we have the potential to surprise people, and there's a rush that happens when you're surprised and you see something happens that you were not expecting. It makes you fall in love. And I know I feel that way with Discover Weekly. I'm with Spotify. This is my Discover Weekly this week, actually. I've been listening to a lot of Brazilian music. It's always an amazing surprise when I open that up and I listen to something new. Surprise is a powerful drug. And I'll show you what I mean. I'll show you what I mean. Surprise. Surprise. The power of surprise is emotional. It's inspiring. Your surprise, it makes you remember. So how will your brand dare to thrive within our disposable culture? I gave you 4 ideas. Virtue, intrigue, awe, and the power of surprise. So my name is Alain. I'm the CEO of SYLVAIN. You can check us out at sylvain.co. Thank you for listening.